Maya Thompson woke up thinking the day would be normal, nothing special, nothing complicated, just another morning in her busy life as the CEO of her own company. She liked simple mornings, she liked peace before the storms of meetings, numbers, and decisions. That morning, she put on a comfortable outfit, plain jeans, a soft sweater, nothing fancy that would make her stand out. She wanted to stop by her bank quickly before going to her office, withdraw some cash, grab a coffee, and head to her schedule. She didn't expect anything unusual, she didn't prepare herself for drama, she didn't imagine that within a few minutes, she would face a moment that would shake the entire bank branch and everyone inside it. She drove through the quiet streets with the sun still rising, the sky painted with a soft orange glow, the radio played gently, but her mind was already planning her day. She had a presentation later, a few calls with clients, and an evening meeting with her board. Everything felt normal. She parked her car near the bank entrance, stepped out, and felt the cool morning breeze on her face. It was peaceful, it was calm. It felt like a good day already. As she walked inside the bank, she noticed that the place was not too crowded, a few customers sitting, a couple of tellers working behind the counters, and a manager talking to a staff member near the office door. Maya smiled politely at the first teller she saw, but the teller only gave a small nod, maybe because she was busy, maybe because she didn't expect someone important to walk in looking so casual. Maya didn't think too much about it. She moved forward and took out her ID and withdrawal slip. She stood at the counter waiting for the teller to assist her. Her request was simple. She needed to withdraw money from her own account, an account she had managed for years, an account that held her company's funds as well as her personal savings. She handed over the slip and her ID, expecting the process to be quick, but the teller paused, looked at Maya's ID again and again, and then glanced toward the manager with uncertainty in her eyes. Maya noticed the hesitation, but she stayed calm, thinking maybe the teller was new or nervous. Seconds later, the manager walked over, a tall man with stiff posture and a cold expression. His shoes clicked loudly on the floor as he approached the counter. He didn't greet Maya, he didn't ask politely, he simply took the ID from the teller's hands and examined it as if he was looking for a reason to reject it. Maya watched him with raised eyebrows. She had dealt with many managers, many employees, many people in leadership positions, and she knew when someone's ego was bigger than their job title. The manager looked at her in a strange way, not like she was a customer, but like she was a problem. He asked her in a harsh tone, "Is this really your ID?" Maya blinked slowly, surprised by his attitude. She answered calmly, "Yes, it's mine," but the manager didn't seem satisfied. He looked her up and down, judging her casual clothes, her relaxed hairstyle, her lack of makeup. He didn't see a CEO standing there, he only saw a woman who didn't fit the image he had in his mind. And in that moment, Maya understood something. This was not a normal day. And this bank visit was not going to be simple. The manager turned to the teller and whispered something. The teller looked uncomfortable. Maya could sense the tension rising. She kept her voice steady, asking, "Is there a problem?" But instead of answering, the manager looked straight at her and said, "You don't look like someone who owns this kind of account." The words hit the air like a sharp blade. Customers nearby turned their heads, a few raised their eyebrows. The entire atmosphere changed. Maya felt a wave of disappointment, not anger, not fear, just deep disappointment, because she had been through moments like this before. Moments where people judged her without knowing her, where people assumed things because of how she dressed, how she looked, or the color of her skin. But Maya wasn't someone who broke easily. She had learned long ago how to remain calm in situations that tried to pull her down. She took a slow breath and asked him steadily, "Are you refusing to process my withdrawal?" The manager crossed his arms, lifted his chin, and said, "Until we verify your identity properly, yes." Maya could see clearly what this was: discrimination, unfair treatment, and pure disrespect. But she didn't raise her voice, she didn't step back, she didn't panic. Instead, she held her ground with quiet strength. The customers watched in silence now, some whispering, some confused. Maya could feel the weight of their eyes, but she didn't care about the crowd. She cared about the truth, she cared about dignity, she cared about how people should be treated, especially somewhere as professional as a bank. She tried once more to explain politely, but the manager continued to speak to her like she was trying to do something wrong, as if she was suspicious, as if she didn't belong there. Maya's heart didn't race with fear, it beat with controlled confidence. She had a choice in this moment, to walk away or to stand firm, and she chose the second option, because she knew something the manager didn't know, something that would change the entire room very soon, something that would make this, normal morning, the most unforgettable moment of his career. And as Maya stood there, calm, composed, and quietly gathering her strength, the clock inside the bank ticked toward the 7 minutes that would change everything. The silence inside the bank felt heavy as Maya stood at the counter, but the manager's sharp voice cut through the air like a knife. He didn't speak softly, he didn't hide his suspicion, he looked at Maya as if she was a stranger walking into a place she didn't belong. He leaned closer to the counter and said loudly enough for the nearby customers to hear, "You don't look like someone who has this kind of money in their account." Maya didn't move, she didn't even blink, she just stared at him. Calmly, letting his words circle the room like smoke, unpleasant and heavy. A few customers looked away awkwardly, others watched with curiosity, but Maya stayed still. She had heard words like this in her life before, but every time it still cut her inside. She wasn't hurt by the insult, she was hurt by how easily people believed their own assumptions. The manager held her ID like it was fake, like it didn't deserve his respect. He flipped it around, examined it again and again, then looked at her clothes as if that was enough to determine her worth. The teller beside him shifted uncomfortably. The young woman glanced at Maya with sympathy, but she was too afraid to speak up. Maya noticed it, she noticed everything, she always did. She observed the details, the small reactions, the tiny hints of truth that people tried to hide, and here, the truth was simple. The manager wasn't verifying her identity, he was judging her identity. Maya took another slow breath, her voice steady as she said, "All you need to do is scan the ID." The manager scoffed and stepped back. "No need," he said quickly, "this doesn't look real." That sentence floated in the air like a challenge. Maya's eyes hardened for a moment, not out of anger, but out of disbelief at how comfortable he was being disrespectful. She replied softly, "You're refusing to check it because you've already decided I'm not the person in the system." The manager didn't like her calmness, it made him feel unstable, it made him feel exposed, so he crossed his arms and raised his voice a little more. "I'm doing my job," he said. "We can't let anyone walk in and pretend to be someone else." That was the moment Maya understood how deep his assumptions ran. She wasn't just being denied service, she was being treated like a threat. A security guard noticed the rising tension and walked closer, but Maya didn't look at him. She didn't need to, she wasn't scared. The manager glanced at the guard proudly, as if he had won something, as if he had proven that Maya was suspicious. Maya kept her posture calm, her shoulders straight, her expression neutral. It wasn't fear controlling her body, it was discipline. Years of learning how to respond to people who didn't expect her to be powerful. She asked the manager again, "Can you tell me what exactly is wrong with my request?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again, trying to form an answer that sounded professional, but all that came out was, "Your ID doesn't match the kind of account this is." Maya almost laughed. The idea was ridiculous, but she didn't allow even a smile to escape. Instead, she said gently, "You haven't even checked my account." The manager raised a hand toward her, waving it dismissively. "Ma'am, I don't need to," he said proudly. "It's obvious something is wrong here." Those words struck the customers too. A few people frowned, one of them whispering to another, "She's being treated badly." But the manager continued, confident in his authority, confident that Maya was powerless. Maya tilted her head slightly, studying him. She saw a man who had never been challenged, a man who believed his position made him superior, a man who had no idea who he was talking to. She placed her hands on the counter gently and said, "You're making a serious mistake." The manager raised an eyebrow. "Is that a threat?" Maya shook her head slowly. "No," she said, "it's a fact." Her calmness unsettled him even more. He stepped back and whispered something to the teller again. The teller looked terrified now, her eyes bouncing between Maya and the manager. She finally opened her mouth as if she wanted to say the truth, but the manager shot her a warning glare, silencing her instantly. Maya watched that exchange carefully. She saw the fear in the young woman's eyes, the guilt, the hesitation. She knew then that the teller already recognized her, maybe from a billboard, maybe from a charity event, maybe from a news article about her company. But fear had locked her voice away. Maya didn't blame her, she had seen this many times, young employees trapped between what is right and what their boss demands. The manager straightened his tie arrogantly and said to Maya, "If you don't leave now, we will have to call the police." Maya stayed silent for a moment, letting the words sink into the walls, letting every customer hear them clearly. Then she spoke in a quiet, steady voice. "Call whoever you want," she said. "I'm not going anywhere." Her tone was soft, but it carried a weight that made the manager hesitate for the first time. He didn't understand why, but suddenly he felt unsure. Suddenly he felt like the situation was slipping out of his control. Maya didn't raise her voice, she didn't threaten, she didn't argue, but something in her presence made everyone feel that something big was about to happen, and while the manager clung to his assumptions, Maya stood there with a calm confidence that hinted at the storm that was coming, and the clock continued ticking toward the moment that would flip the entire bank upside down. The air inside the bank grew tighter as Maya stood her ground, but the manager, Mr. Benson, seemed determined to make the situation worse instead of fixing it. He puffed up his chest like he was protecting the bank from danger, when in reality, he was creating the problem himself. He held Maya's ID between his fingers and waved it slightly, as if the card itself offended him. "This doesn't look original," he declared again, louder this time, hoping volume would make his words true. Maya remained calm, so calm that it made a few customers admire her silently. She could have matched his tone, she could have shouted back, she could have argued, but she didn't, because Maya wasn't just thinking about the moment, she was thinking 3 steps ahead. That was how she had become a CEO in the first place, by staying composed when others lost control. She lifted her phone slowly, not in anger, but in purpose. With a smooth, deliberate motion, she opened her camera app and pressed record. Mr. Benson's eyes flashed with irritation. "You can't record in here," he snapped. "Says who?" Maya replied gently, "Show me the policy." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He couldn't show her a policy because he knew he was wrong, and Maya knew it too. She held her phone at her side, recording everything without pointing it directly at him. She didn't need to capture faces, she just needed audio, the tone, the words, the disrespect. The customers watched closely now, sensing that something important was happening. The young teller who recognized Maya earlier looked more nervous with every passing second. Her hands trembled as she rearranged papers that didn't need rearranging. Mr. Benson noticed the attention and grew even more defensive. He stepped closer to Maya and lowered his voice, though not low enough to escape the recording. "Ma'am, you are causing a disturbance," he whispered sharply. Maya raised her eyebrow. "By asking for my own money," she replied calmly. He clenched his jaw, annoyed that she refused to be intimidated. "You're refusing to cooperate," he said. "I'm refusing to be disrespected." Maya answered, her voice was still gentle, but her words were blades wrapped in silk. Instead of reconsidering, Mr. Benson made things worse. "Security," he called out, waving the guard forward. The guard, a large man with a careful expression, approached slowly. He didn't seem eager to escalate anything, maybe because he sensed Maya wasn't a troublemaker, maybe because he had seen similar situations before. The guard stood a few steps away, waiting for instructions. "Remove her if she refuses to leave," Mr. Benson said proudly, like he had just solved a major crisis. Maya looked at the guard with calm eyes. "Are you going to forcefully remove a customer who simply wants her own money?" she asked kindly. The guard swallowed, confused and uncomfortable. He looked at Mr. Benson, then at Maya, his moral compass spinning inside his chest. Mr. Benson didn't care about anyone's discomfort, he only cared about proving himself right. But Maya knew something he didn't. She knew how power worked, real power, not the fake authority someone held behind a desk. She knew something was about to shift. She could feel it like a cold wind brushing her skin. She leaned slightly forward and said in a steady voice, "I suggest you check the account before making assumptions." Mr. Benson scoffed. "I don't need to check anything," he snapped. "Your appearance tells enough." That sentence didn't just cross the line, it burned the line entirely. A few customers gasped. One woman covered her mouth. The young teller's eyes filled with fear and shame. Mr. Benson didn't even realize what he had said, but everyone else did. Even the security guard's face changed, a mix of shock and regret flashing across his expression. Maya finally nodded slowly, as if she had just received the confirmation she needed. Not confirmation of his insult, she already knew that, but confirmation that what she was about to do next was completely justified. She pressed a button on her phone, saving the recording carefully. Then she placed her phone on the counter and looked directly into Mr. Benson's eyes. "Since you refuse to verify my identity," she said calmly, "I'll let someone else verify it for you." He frowned. "What does that mean?" Maya didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek, expensive-looking business card holder. She opened it, selected one card, and placed it on the counter facing up. Mr. Benson leaned forward to read it, and his face changed instantly. The color drained from his cheeks. The card read, "Maya Thompson, CEO and primary corporate account holder, Thompson & Wells International." He blinked rapidly, his jaw hanging open, his mind scrambling to process what he was seeing. He looked at the teller, who nodded with trembling hands, silently confirming what she had known all along. The customers murmured softly, some in shock, some fully expecting this twist now after seeing Maya's calm confidence. The guard stepped back quietly, suddenly wanting no part of this disaster. Maya watched his reaction without smiling, without bragging, without cruelty. She simply stood with dignity. "Now," she said softly, "would you like to verify my account properly?" Her voice was gentle, but the room felt her power, and for the first time since the confrontation began, the manager felt fear, not because Maya was dangerous, but because he had just realized he had disrespected the wrong woman completely. And the clock continued ticking, moving closer to the exact moment when everything inside this bank would collapse around him, and Maya would take control of the situation in a way he never imagined. The moment Maya placed her business card on the counter, the entire atmosphere of the bank changed. It was as if someone had cut through the silence with a sharp blade, leaving everyone frozen in place. Mr. Benson's hand shook slightly as he held the card, his confident posture melting away like ice under sunlight. He stared at the card again, blinking rapidly, as if hoping the words printed on it would magically rearrange themselves into something less intimidating. The teller, who had been quiet until now, swallowed hard. She already knew Maya's face. She had seen her in news articles, in local charity events, in business magazines that celebrated successful black entrepreneurs. She had wanted to help earlier, but fear held her back. Now her chest tightened with guilt, because everything Maya had been accused of was nothing but a dangerous assumption. Maya didn't raise her voice, she didn't smirk, she didn't show any victory. She simply stood with her steady posture and calm expression. It was the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to prove power, someone who was power. Mr. Benson forced a smile that looked painfully unnatural. "Ms. Thompson," he said awkwardly, "why didn't you tell us who you were earlier?" Maya tilted her head slightly. "Why should I?" she asked calmly. "Do I need a title before being treated with basic respect?" Her words struck him harder than anything else. The customers murmured softly, nodding, whispering things like, "She's right," and "he messed up." The security guard stepped further back, now completely uninterested in supporting the manager who had pulled him into this mess. He knew what was coming. He could feel the storm building. Mr. Benson laughed nervously, the sound thin and shaky. Of course, no disrespect was meant," he claimed quickly. We have strict policies." Maya raised one eyebrow slightly. "Your policy is to judge customers by their clothes?" she asked gently, "or by how they look?" The manager's mouth opened but no words escaped. His throat tightened, sweat forming at his temples. He glanced at the staff as if begging them for help, but none of them were brave enough to step in. The young teller, however, finally gathered her courage. She leaned forward carefully and whispered, "Ms. Thompson. I recognized you earlier. I wanted to help, but..." Her voice cracked with fear. Maya looked at her kindly and said, "It's okay." The reassurance made the teller breathe out as if a weight had lifted from her shoulders, but for Mr. Benson, the moment only deepened his panic. "Let me just verify your account personally," he said quickly, tapping the keyboard with trembling fingers, but the computer responded with a prompt the moment he entered Maya's name. A bright alert appeared on the screen. "Priority client. Contact head office immediately." His eyes widened, and a fragile tremble moved down his spine. He swallowed, forcing a stiff smile. "It seems your account is flagged for special security." He lied weakly. Maya didn't even need to see the screen to know he was trying to save himself. She simply nodded. "Good," she said softly, "then follow the procedure." Mr. Benson hesitated, because the procedure required calling the head office, and calling the head office meant revealing his mistake to people much higher than him, people who actually knew Maya, people who had worked with her, people who respected her, but he had no choice. The eyes of the entire bank were on him, even the security guard was staring with crossed arms, waiting for the truth to crush him completely. He picked up the phone with shaking hands and dialed. The line rang once, twice, and then a crisp professional voice answered, "HQ Banking Services, how may I assist you?" "Mr. Benson," cleared his throat, "this is Manager Benson from Northview Branch. I have a mess. Maya Thompson here requesting a withdrawal." The line went silent for half a second, then the voice sharpened instantly. "The Maya Thompson?" the representative asked with urgency. Mr. Benson flinched. "Why yes," he whispered, "that's correct." "Please hold," the voice said quickly, followed by tense silence. Maya stood patiently, watching him unravel piece by piece. She wasn't enjoying his downfall, but she wasn't going to soften the consequences either. People like him didn't learn without facing their own actions. Suddenly, the phone crackled, and a higher-ranked voice came on. "Manager Benson," the voice said sharply, "why did Ms. Thompson need to call us? Why was her withdrawal delayed?" Mr. Benson's lips trembled. I was just verifying her status," he stuttered. "Verifying?" The voice questioned coldly. "Her account is one of the largest in your branch, and she is a primary corporate partner. What exactly required verification?" The silence that followed felt heavier than the building itself. Maya stepped forward and spoke just loud enough for the person on the phone to hear. "He refused to scan my ID," she said calmly, "and made assumptions based on how I look." She didn't add anger or emotion. She didn't need to, because the truth was enough to bury him. The line crackled again, the voice now frosted with anger. "Manager Benson," the voice said, "stay right where you are. We are sending someone from headquarters immediately." Mr. Benson lowered the phone with shaking hands, his face turning ghostly pale. He looked around the room hoping for support, but everyone looked away, ashamed for him, not with him. Maya took a quiet breath, her eyes calm, her posture steady. She had given him more chances than he deserved. But now the consequences were coming, and they were coming fast. The clock continued ticking, drawing them all closer to the 7 minutes that would change everything for the bank, and for the manager who had judged her without knowing who she truly was. The moment the headquarters officer said someone was being sent immediately, the bank fell into a deeper silence. It wasn't just quiet, it was tense, heavy, and filled with the kind of fear that spreads through a room when everyone knows something big is about to happen. Mr. Benson's hands were still shaking from the phone call, and he kept wiping his forehead as if sweat could erase his mistake, but nothing could erase what he had done. Not now, not after Maya had calmly revealed the truth. Maya stepped back from the counter and took a seat in one of the customer chairs, not because she was tired, but because she wanted to give him space to breathe. She wasn't cruel, she wasn't interested in watching him panic, she simply knew what needed to happen. She crossed her legs gently and rested her phone in her lap, watching everything with calm eyes. The customers nearby whispered quietly, some of them glancing at her with respect, admiration, or guilt for not stepping up sooner. The young teller who had recognized her kept stealing nervous looks. Her hands shook as she typed into her computer even though she wasn't doing anything important. She was too afraid to interact but too ashamed to look away. Maya understood that too. She had met hundreds of young employees in her life who were trapped under bad managers, afraid to speak but desperate for things to be fair. Mr. Benson tried to regain his authority, but every step he took, every shallow breath he inhaled, every awkward glance he threw at Maya reminded him that control had slipped out of his hands completely. He walked to the security guard and whispered something, but the guard stayed still, shaking his head slightly. He no longer supported the manager's actions, not after seeing who Maya really was and what she represented. Minutes passed slowly, but to Mr. Benson they felt like hours. Maya sat calmly, her posture straight, her eyes observing every detail. She didn't speak, she didn't argue, she didn't show anger. Her silence was louder than any confrontation. It made him more nervous because he didn't know what she was thinking or what would happen next. But Maya didn't need to think much. She already knew exactly what she was going to do, and she knew exactly what consequences were coming for him. Finally, Maya took out her phone again, this time not to record but to make a call. The customers watched as she pressed a single number on her speed dial. She spoke in a soft, steady tone. "Good morning, this is Maya Thompson," she said. "I need to report a serious incident at the Northview branch." Her voice wasn't angry, it wasn't emotional, it was professional, serious, and precise. Mr. Benson froze. His knees began to weaken as he realized she wasn't just contacting headquarters, she was taking formal action. She continued speaking calmly. "I was denied a simple withdrawal," she said. "My ID was refused, and I was treated like a criminal." The person on the other line reacted immediately. Maya nodded slowly as she listened, her voice steady as she added, "I have a full recording, and I'm prepared to send it if needed." Every word she spoke cut through the room like a slow-moving blade, quiet but impossible to ignore. When the call ended, Maya locked her phone and rested it gently on her lap again. The entire bank felt heavier. Mr. Benson opened his mouth as if to apologize, but she lifted one finger slightly, stopping him. "You had many chances," she said softly, "but you chose disrespect every time." Her voice wasn't loud, but it sank deep into the room. Her gentle tone made it even worse for him because it showed how calm she remained while he fell apart. Outside, the sound of a car pulling up caught everyone's attention. The doors opened, and footsteps approached the entrance, strong, fast, confident footsteps that made even the customers stand taller. The security guard straightened immediately. The young teller almost dropped her pen. Maya didn't even turn her head, she already knew who had arrived. The bank's glass doors opened wide as the branch director stepped inside. He wasn't alone. Two assistant managers rushed in behind him, looking around with urgency. They scanned the room as if they were responding to an emergency. And in a way, they were. The director spotted Maya instantly and his face changed. He approached her quickly, his voice filled with respect. "Ms. Thompson," he said, "I am deeply sorry for what you experienced." Gasps filled the room. Some customers covered their mouths, others stared at Mr. Benson like he was already gone. The director ignored the manager completely as he turned back to Maya and asked, "Are you okay? Did anyone disrespect you further after your call?" Maya nodded gently. "I'm fine," she said, "but this should never have happened at all." The director agreed immediately. "You're right," he said, his voice firm, "and it won't continue." He turned to Mr. Benson slowly, his expression turning cold. "Manager Benson," he said, "before I hear your explanation, I want you to understand something." The room grew silent, the tension cut like glass. "You did not deny service to a random customer," he continued. "You denied service to one of our most important partners. And you did it with disrespect." Every word landed like a hammer. Maya watched quietly, knowing that this was only the beginning. The director stepped closer to the manager, his voice sharp as steel. "And now," he said, "we will deal with your actions properly." The clock kept ticking, drawing them all into the moment where justice would finally meet the man who had caused so much humiliation. The director's sharp words cut through the room like a blade, and Mr. Benson stood frozen in place. His lips trembled, his posture crumbled, and for the first time since Maya entered the bank, he looked truly afraid, not afraid of Maya's calm strength, but afraid of the truth finally catching up to him. The customers remained silent, their eyes fixed on him, waiting to see what would happen next. The director stepped closer until he was standing only a few feet away from Mr. Benson. His voice dropped even lower, but somehow it carried even more force. "You had one job," he said, "to serve every customer with fairness and professionalism, and you failed both." Mr. Benson tried to swallow the lump in his throat, but his voice cracked when he whispered, "Sir, if I could just explain." The director raised a hand instantly, shutting him down without hesitation. "There is nothing you can say that will undo what you've done," the director replied. "You didn't verify her account, you didn't check her ID, you didn't follow bank policy. Instead, you made decisions based on prejudice and assumptions." Each word hit the wall hard, echoing through the silent lobby. The security guard shifted his weight awkwardly. The young teller wiped her eyes before tears could fall, and Maya sat quietly, watching the process with steady eyes. Mr. Benson's chest rose and fell rapidly. He finally turned toward Maya, desperate. "Ms. Thompson, I didn't realize," but Maya stood up slowly before he could finish. Her calm presence unsettled him more than any anger could have. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't insult him, she simply said, "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me with respect." Her words sank into his heart like stones, heavy and unavoidable. The director nodded firmly at her statement, then turned back to Mr. Benson, you judged her because of her clothes, her appearance, her hairstyle, he listed, is that correct? The manager looked down at his shoes, unable to speak, unable to deny the truth. The director didn't wait for an answer. This bank does not tolerate discrimination, he said sharply, and you have violated that policy in the worst possible way. Suddenly, the glass doors opened again. Another senior official from headquarters walked in, a woman with a strict posture and a face that showed she meant business. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on Maya immediately. She walked straight toward her and bowed her head lightly. Ms. Thompson, she said respectfully, headquarters is fully aware of the incident. We will handle everything from here. Her tone made the customers straighten in their seats. She wasn't just an employee, she was someone with authority that even the director respected. She approached the counter, glanced at the recording icon still visible on Maya's phone, and nodded with understanding. May we review the audio later? She asked kindly. Maya nodded. Of course, she said, I want this to be addressed properly. The senior official turned to Mr. Benson, who looked like he might collapse. Manager Benson, she said in a firm, cold voice, your actions have put the bank's reputation at risk. You have disrespected a high-value partner, and you have violated ethical policy. Mr. Benson stammered, I was just trying to protect the bank. By humiliating a customer, she cut in sharply, by refusing to verify a simple account. He fell silent again, the weight of his choices pressing into his shoulders. The senior official looked at him for another moment, then glanced at the director and nodded once. It was a silent signal, a decision already made. The director stepped forward with a final, icy tone. Your behavior today is unacceptable, he said, and the consequences will be immediate. But before he could finish, Maya raised a gentle hand. Both officials paused, surprised. Maya stepped closer to the counter, her voice soft but filled with strength. I want to say something before you take any action, she said. The room leaned in, almost breathless. Even Mr. Benson looked up with hope trembling in his eyes. Maya took a calm breath and said, I am not here for revenge. Her voice was warm but steady. I am here for change. The director nodded respectfully. The senior official watched her closely, understanding the weight of her words. Maya continued, there are many people like him in positions of authority who use their power the wrong way, she said. If nothing changes, more customers will face disrespect. More young employees will stay silent, and more voices will be ignored. Her words struck every person in the room, including the customers, who nodded quietly. The young teller wiped another tear, her shoulders shaking with relief and guilt mixed together. The security guard sighed deeply, feeling the truth in her speech. Mr. Benson whispered, I'm sorry, but the apology felt small, broken, and too late. Maya nodded gently. You should be, she said, but sorry doesn't erase the damage. The senior official stepped forward again, her voice strong. Ms. Thompson, she said, thank you for speaking with fairness, but rest assured, there will be consequences. The director nodded, folding his arms. We are handling it immediately, he said. Maya took one final breath, her eyes steady, her posture unshakable. She didn't need anger, she didn't need shouting. Her calm truth had already shaken the entire building. The clock kept ticking, and everyone knew, whatever came next would change the bank forever. The atmosphere inside the bank was so tense that even the sound of the air conditioning felt loud. Everyone stood still, customers, tellers, the guard, the director, the senior official, every pair of eyes shifting between Maya and the trembling manager who had spent the morning insulting her. It was the kind of silence that comes right before a final decision, the kind that people remember for years. Maya stood calmly, her hands resting softly by her sides, her expression still peaceful, but everyone could feel the power she carried in her voice. The senior official glanced at the director and said quietly, it's time. Those two words struck fear so deep into Mr. Benson that he visibly staggered, his knees shook, he gripped the edge of the counter as if he needed something to hold him up. He looked from the director to the senior official, then to Maya. His voice cracked as he whispered, please, don't ruin my career. I didn't mean, but Maya stepped forward before he could finish. She looked him straight in the eyes, not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with a deeply disappointing calmness. That calmness hurt him more than screaming ever could. You didn't mean to, she asked gently, or you didn't think you would ever face consequences for the way you treat people. He swallowed hard, unable to respond, because deep down, He knew the truth. He had done this to many customers before Maya, people who didn't have power, people who didn't have influence, people who couldn't fight back. But today, he had made a mistake by choosing the wrong person to mistreat. The director took a step forward, clearing his throat. "Ms. Thompson," he said respectfully, "before we continue, I want to thank you for handling this with such professionalism." Maya nodded politely, but she didn't smile. The senior official added, "We have seen your recording, we have heard the call, and we understand everything." She turned to the customers and the staff as she continued, "This incident will not be ignored, and it will not fade away quietly." Mr. Benson's lips trembled as he whispered, "Please. I have a family." Maya closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply, then she opened them and said, "So do the people you humiliated in the past." Her voice was soft, but it hit him like a punch. It wasn't a threat, it was the truth he had ignored all his life. The manager looked around for someone to defend him, but no one moved, no one stepped forward, no one even looked sympathetic. The young teller stood with tears in her eyes, her voice tiny as she finally spoke. "Ms. Thompson tried to help people," she said. "She sponsors schools, she funds community centers, she invests in youth programs, and you treated her like she was nothing." Her words made Mr. Benson's heart sink even deeper. The customers nodded slowly, some with hands on their chests, realizing how cruelly Maya had been treated. Not because she did anything wrong, but because one man had allowed prejudice to control him. The director folded his arms, his voice now firm and final. "Manager Benson," he said, "you have violated professional conduct, abused your authority, and disrespected one of our most important partners." The senior official added sharply, "And your behavior is now part of a formal report with headquarters." The manager's face drained completely of color. He took a weak step backward, his voice barely a whisper, "Please. I'm begging you." But Maya looked at him one last time, her eyes steady and filled with a quiet strength that made everyone listen. "If I walk out of here without saying what needs to be said," she said, "you will do this again to someone else, someone who doesn't have power, someone who can't record you, someone who will go home feeling small." Her voice shook slightly, not with fear, but with emotion. "I'm not letting that happen," she said gently, "not today." The senior official nodded, reached into her bag, and pulled out a document. She handed it to the director, who didn't waste a single second. He looked at Mr. Benson with a final, cold expression. "Your employment is terminated immediately," he said, "effective this moment." The words landed like a hammer hitting stone. The customers gasped softly, the teller covered her mouth, the guard lowered his eyes, and Maya stood silently as the truth settled into the floor, into the walls, into every person watching. Mr. Benson staggered backward, his legs almost giving up on him. "Fired?" he whispered. "Right now?" The senior official didn't blink. "Right now," she confirmed. "You must leave the building immediately." His face crumbled, his shaking hands clutched his tie, his lips parted but no words came out. He was undone, completely undone. Maya didn't smile or celebrate, she simply watched him quietly, knowing that justice didn't always come loudly. It often arrived in calm footsteps, in truthful words, in quiet consequences. And as the manager realized his career was over, he looked at Maya with regret, fear, and sorrow all mixing together. But Maya simply turned her eyes away, because she knew this moment wasn't about revenge, it was about fairness, respect, and a lesson he would never forget. The clock ticked again, marking the 7th minute since Maya had first revealed her identity, 7 minutes that had changed everything inside this bank, and the story wasn't finished just yet, because what Maya was about to say next would silence the room all over again. As the final words of the termination hung in the air, the entire bank stood in stunned silence. It was the kind of silence that comes only after something big has just happened, the kind of silence people remember for a long time. Mr. Benson stood frozen near the counter, his hands shaking, his eyes empty. His career had crumbled right in front of him, piece by piece, and he had no one to blame but himself. But the moment wasn't over yet, because Maya still had something to say, something that would stay in the hearts of everyone watching. She stepped forward slowly, her posture calm, her expression soft but strong. Every eye in the bank turned toward her, even those who had been trembling moments earlier. The young teller wiped her cheeks, the security guard stood a little straighter, customers leaned in, wanting to hear every word Maya was about to say. She didn't rush, she didn't raise her voice. She simply breathed in slowly and spoke with a quiet power that filled the entire room. "I didn't come here for this," she said gently. "I came here to withdraw money and start my day, like any other person." Her voice floated through the air like warm wind, touching everyone listening. "What happened here wasn't a misunderstanding," she continued, "it was a choice." She turned her eyes toward the manager, who lowered his gaze instantly. "You chose assumptions over respect," she said softly, "judgment over service, ego over professionalism." The director bowed his head, ashamed on behalf of the entire branch. The senior official folded her hands respectfully. The customers nodded slowly, their expressions full of understanding and regret for what they had witnessed. But Maya wasn't finished. She turned away from the manager and faced the staff, particularly the young teller who had been too afraid to speak earlier. "You," Maya said gently, "you recognized me, didn't you?" The teller's throat tightened. She nodded softly, tears filling her eyes again. "Why didn't you speak up?" Maya asked, not with anger but with genuine curiosity. The teller wiped her cheeks and whispered, I was scared. He always yells, he always threatens to fire someone. I didn't want to lose my job." Her voice cracked, trembling with fear and shame. Maya stepped closer and placed a gentle hand on the counter between them. "I understand," she said warmly. "I've been in your place before. I know how hard it is to speak when you're afraid." The teller's breath shook. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Maya smiled softly. "Don't be," she said. "You showed something today that he never did. Kindness." Customers nodded, some even clapped softly. The teller covered her mouth as more tears fell, but this time they weren't tears of fear, they were tears of relief, of release, of finally being seen. The senior official stepped forward and said, "This young woman will not face consequences. In fact, her honesty is appreciated." The teller gasped softly, relieved in a way she had never felt before. Maya turned back to the room. "Every workplace," she said, "every bank, every company, every store, needs people who understand that respect is not optional." Her voice carried a strong message, one that sank deep into the minds of everyone present. "What happened today should never happen to anyone," she added, "not because of their clothes, not because of their skin, not because someone thinks they don't belong." The senior official nodded firmly. "Ms. Thompson, we will make sure this incident leads to major training and policy changes," she promised, "not just here, but across multiple branches." Maya appreciated the sincerity. "Good," she said, "because when systems change, people change." Then the director cleared his throat. "Ms. Thompson," he said respectfully, "if you're ready, we can process your withdrawal now." Maya smiled gently. "Yes," she said, "let's finish what I came here for." Her words made a few people laugh softly, easing the tension at last. The young teller stepped forward bravely. "I can assist you," she said with new confidence. Maya nodded, grateful. While the teller processed her withdrawal with perfect professionalism, Mr. Benson stood quietly, holding a box the assistant manager had handed him. He placed a few belongings inside, his hands trembling. He wasn't angry anymore, just broken. He glanced at Maya one last time, guilt heavy on his face. I truly am sorry," he whispered. Maya met his eyes one final time. "I hope you learn from this," she said quietly, "and treat people better in your next chapter." Those words, gentle yet powerful, landed deeper than any punishment could. Then Maya turned away, because she was done carrying the weight of his choices. Her withdrawal was completed. The teller handed her the receipt with both hands and said, "Thank you for your patience." Maya smiled warmly and replied, "Thank you for your courage." As she walked toward the exit, the director and senior official walked beside her respectfully. The customers stepped aside, some nodding, some whispering admiration. The security guard opened the door for her with a proud smile, and as Maya stepped out into the sunlight, the bank behind her stood forever changed, not because she was powerful, but because she used her power with dignity, calmness, and truth. And that day became a story people would tell again and again. A reminder that respect should never depend on appearance, and that one calm voice can change an entire room, an entire policy, an entire life.